everybody. I know I've been kind of MIA for like a month and a half at this point. But yeah, I've just kind of had a lot of personal stuff going on, and I had a little time this week. I'm going to try and start getting back onto a regular schedule. But I figured since I had 5 minutes, let's have a nice casual anime discussion tonight. There's just one itty bitty problem. I have finished literally nothing. I'm behind on everything, rather it's seasonal shit, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that good stuff. So the only thing I have managed to watch from start to finish from this past season is Kinnikuman Perfect Origin Arc. And now many of you may be wondering, why the fuck would you watch this? For those of you who don't know, Kinnikuman is a anime and manga franchise. It was from either the late 70s or the early 80s that follows Kinnikuman, a just upfront just Ultraman parody, as he goes through crazy wrestling matches versus all sorts of wacky, over-the-top aliens. And yeah, it's had no presence here in the West at all. If I remember correctly, the only exposure I had to this as a kid was they brought the sequel series that follows Kinnikuman's kid over here as Ultimate Muscle, which was on the short-lived Foxbox block on Fox Network. For those of you who don't remember, Foxbox was a horrible time when Fox Kids was taken out and shot and replaced by 4Kids garbage. There's also, funnily enough, where we got a English dub of Ultraman Tiga, as well as just a whole bunch of just shit. And also the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. Don't at me. But yeah, so. This again goes back to the question, why watch something I know fucking nothing about? Especially when this isn't like a full-on reboot. This is just a sequel to the thing from the 70s based on a 2011 manga. So why would you watch this? Okay, it's mostly because I was waiting for Kimi ni Todoke to come back, and I needed something to watch on Netflix. So I tried this out, and I'll be straight up honest. As someone who has been very open about hating most modern battle shonen, I kind of liked this. I had fun with this. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. I'm not even saying it's making my best of the year list, because we got to start thinking about that since it's October. I'm simply saying, in a world where I do not give two fucks about Yuji using Black Flash or what demon Tanjiro is going to cut the head off of this week, I enjoyed this wacky, over-the-top wrestling series. So let's talk about why. First and foremost, should just address the obvious, and it's funny. It's wacky, it's over the top, it's insane. There are characters in this ranging from a giant walking spring to a dude who is just a literal mountain, and all the way just going down to just a guy from Texas, the most dangerous thing in the world. And yeah, everything is delivered. Everyone plays everything straight in this. But there is this sort of tongue-in-cheekness to the way people talk that I think really just allows you to enjoy the silliness of everything. I kind of feel like as this sort of era of everything needs to take itself super seriously or be super aware goes by, I feel like we've just kind of lost the ability to just say, yeah, this is insane. This is dumb. This makes no sense. Have fun with it. We don't do that anymore. Dragon Ball is coming back with Dragon Ball Daima, and Dragon Ball was the king of this winking at the camera tongue-in-cheekness to everything. And I kind of wonder if Daima can kind of bring it back, or that's a lot of the appeal of JoJo's. I do kind of wonder if the original Kinnikuman fights are similar to how this series handles fights, if that was an influence on Araki. Maybe I should have looked into that before saying it in a video, but too fucking late now, and I'm not re-recording this shit. So yeah, there is this just fun over-the-topness to everything that just kind of felt like a bit of a breath of fresh air. Especially because for those of you who don't know, the most dead serious isekai ever came out, and I kind of would just like to see Kinnikuman beat this main character up. But yeah, so that's kind of where a lot of the humor comes from. But even just taking the silliness of it, I really do like the fights in this. Something I sort of like is, and again, this is going back to my JoJo's comparison, it does feel like stam battles were an influence on how fights are presented in this series. I should probably get back to doing the JoJo videos. But anyways, the fights in this series are based less around, let's just do a punch up. They're more sort of based around two guys stand in the ring and they immediately begin trying to assess how the other fights, what is their gimmick, what are their powers, and how can my gimmicks and powers go up against it. Not every fight is like this. The Texas guy literally just starts beating the shit out of the guy before the bell goes off. But for the most part, it is just kind of fun watching characters assess how to deal with a situation. A lot of fights, not just in Battle Shonen, but in a lot of action stuff, just come down to, I'm really tough and I'll push through with the power of friendship or force of will or whatever the hell. Whereas here, and again, there is some of that, make no mistake, it does feel like there is an attempt to use strategy. There is an attempt to present characters as intelligent and have ideas as to what they're supposed to do and how they come up with things in the moment. It makes the fights good, and it makes the characters likable and relatable on a very basic level. No one here is super complex. No one here is like the most intelligent character I've ever seen, but everyone is very simplistic. And a lot of times that doesn't work, but sometimes it can. When you have this sort of like over the top crazy world where just anything can happen anytime, I think having very simplistic characters with very simple motivations and goals, I think is kind of a nice idea, and it can kind of like complement the story and allow you to move on to what's fun. Like when Kinnikuman makes his entrance like 2-3 episodes in, and like after we've just seen like all this wacky insanity and we've seen Terryman just really like just get beaten to hell and still willing to fight like 7 other guys because again, the power of Texas. And then Kinnikuman just shows up and be like, don't worry, brah, I got this. And I'm going to say wacky dialogue and go into a fight. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I kind of buy this. I think this kind of like works for what it is. Even the villain motivations. It's the single, simplest, dumb, brain-dead, muscle-headed idiot things you can imagine. But it kind of works. Like, it's just very simple and straightforward. And again, the bad guys are so simple and straightforward in how they present themselves. You do believe that, yeah, they would do all this just because of that. The only kind of like character who has like any real complexity to him is Buffalo Man, who's definitely wrestling with the idea of having to serve his world and his ideology and all that with what he's learned from Kinnikuman previously. It is also good everyone's very simple here because there's not a lot of like preamble in this show. It just kind of dumps you in. There was they call it episode 0, but considering the season was only 11 episodes, anyway, just call it episode 1, where they kind of like filled you in on just the general storyline of Kinnikuman. I'll be totally honest, I think it more just confused me than anything else. But when the actual show gets going and you have these very just straightforward basic characters just being very upfront about everything they think and why they think it, and even when they don't, you can clearly tell what they're feeling. I feel like the simplicity just complements everything very well. And that's kind of just what we had here. And I think that's maybe the best thing about it. This show isn't interested in giving you the greatest battle scenes I've ever seen. It doesn't really care if its characters are like super complicated. It doesn't care about any of the things that modern anime feels like it had to care about. It cared about giving you a story about Kinnikuman and his wacky adventures and antics. And I think in that respect, it delivered it pretty well. Again, not saying this is the greatest anime ever or a top of the year contender, but I kind of just needed a fun little palate cleanser show. As far as problems go, because again, I still got to be fair and talk about that. The visuals of this show, I think, are okay. It's a production IG joint. Actually, Netflix has a lot of production IG stuff. It's one of their shows. It's not really incredible looking. It's perfectly fine, but it's a very simplistic looking show. You can always tell that they've got the A team on other stuff. But yeah, that really wasn't a problem. I could see how the simplicity could get to you. And again, the fact it just dumps you in and expects you to just kind of go along with everything, I imagine could be tough for some sort of people. Sometimes I feel like it replicates the feeling of when you're a kid watching a Saturday morning cartoon, which this was a Saturday morning cartoon for me, the Ultimate Muscle version at least. So yeah, those are probably like it for gripes. It is just a lot of you gotta go along with this show's brand of ridiculousness, which isn't gonna be for everybody, and I think that's perfectly fair. This series did like insane in Japan because of how much of a pop culture icon Kinnikuman is in his own right. Whereas here it just kind of like, I imagine, came and went, and I think it's a shame. I think if you're just kind of looking for something simple to enjoy, give this show a try. Sit back, have a little fun, and I think you'll find something to like here. Also, it is kind of weird. The fact that Kinnikuman doesn't show up like 2 to 3-ish episodes in, I imagine could probably throw you off if you want to know anything about your protagonist. But yeah, no, those are my thoughts on Kinnikuman. It's fun, and I kind of just needed something simple and fun to enjoy for time, and I liked it for that. But yeah, give me your thoughts about this show in the comments section below. Do you remember Ultimate Muscle and have good memories of Foxbox? Yeah, I have such a strong aversion to everything for kids that isn't like the original Yu-Gi-Oh dub that I find it hard to go back to any of their things and not think about the very horrible things they did to their actors and their IPs, and look into it. They're not good people. But yeah, give me your thoughts about that in the comment section below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me next time where we'll talk about something a little more complicated. Hopefully, maybe. We'll see.